Welcome back to the Ladyboss interview series. I'm Kat McDavitt, and in this set of interviews, I'm interviewing women leaders in the healthcare technology industry about one big thing. In this episode, our one big thing is a deep dive into mission with Therasa Bell, CTO and co-founder of Know2. Therasa talks to us about what being mission-driven really means and why it's not just a nice thing to have when building a company.
Thank you, Kat, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. This is obviously healthcare IT is something I'm very passionate about, and a female in healthcare IT, very, very passionate about that. But to your question on who I am, I'm president and CTO of Know2. I am a co-founder actually of the organization. It was myself and a gentleman 12 years ago that we started the company. And to just demonstrate to you how mission focused we are, at that time, we wrote out our BHAGs. For those that are familiar with that, it's called the Big Hairy Audacious Goals.
I say big hairy ass goals, but it's nice to that's fine.
Well, we'll talk about hairy asses on another call, but that's sorry. It was big for us, big hairy audacious goals, and we wrote 3 of them, and we've actually not changed a single word in those over 12 years, and they've never been truer for the organization than they are today. We're actually fulfilling those and pushing towards those goals. But at the beginning of the company, when we looked at it, our goal was to solve interoperability once and for all. And I had always said, if once interoperability moves from being a noun to a verb, then I know the goal is being achieved in the market. And when it's no longer the theme topic at HIMSS, and I think it's been the last 15 years rolling, that now artificial intelligence, that's the new buzzword. When it's no longer the theme topic at HIMSS, then I know.
At least it's not blockchain, Therasa.
Oh yeah, well that was blockchain. I think that lasted for like a year, but that was that was in and out. But that's how mission driven we are. We've not changed our mission, and the words are exactly spot on. We live them. Our mission was not only about what we would do with the technology, but who we would serve also. So while the entire industry was moving after where the dollars were being spent, where meaningful use dollars were being spent with the health systems and the physicians, and the entire technology industry looked to that direction for the downflow of money, we went the other way. And we went after where we knew interoperability would become important later on, but they needed to prepare themselves. And that's post-acute, emergency medical services, dental, vision, behavioral health. And that absolutely has rung true, but we stuck to it. And believe me, that was not easy. It was, try going to a board meeting saying, just bear with us. We know it's going to happen soon. We know it's going to happen soon. If we grabbed all the land in terms of the EHR companies and so forth, but it took a long time for that market to mature, but we didn't leave it. And just because it was hard, it was not like, oh, let's pivot and see where we can make money. We set out with a purpose. We set out with a vision, and it was to solve interoperability. And we didn't, by both what we did on the technology and who we served, we have not changed from that at all. And I think that's a total testimony to how we view mission is it's not something you take lightly, and you don't change from it. And that's what we're doing.
Well, it's unusual, right? Because we do typically hear about companies that can't hold out, right? And there's millions and billions over here, so that's where they go. And unfortunately, they leave a lot of market share open for the later days. So it is unique. It's really, I think it's very rare to find a company that's done what you all have. So was it just that you and your co-founder had this mindset, or how did you push through that? Because that is a lot of pressure.
Well, I'm only actually 15 years old when you look at me, but I only look like I've aged 45 years. So it has been a lot of pressure, I'll tell you that. And it's through tenacity, commitment, that we've pushed through it. But having a co-founder and then hiring people of like mind was the number one requirement. I will say that we were surrounded, myself, having a co-founder that had the same integrity towards the commitment of the goals and pursuing those, the same passion to pursue them. And it wasn't seen, first of all, as a wealth generation opportunity. It was seen, that was secondary. The money would follow if we did it right. And then hiring accordingly. I made a decision. I was, the CEO for a period of time, and that really wasn't where I wanted to be. But it also required a level of tenacity at that CEO level with our board and with other groups to to surround ourselves with like people that wanted to share in the mission, and we're in for the long haul. So we brought in a CEO in 2014. It was somebody that I actually had the privilege of working with, who sat across the table, I always say, from me, and used our technology. And I just enjoyed the way that he worked. His name is John Ella. I enjoyed the way he worked in the organization that he was leading at the time. And I could see his qualities. And so asked him to become the CEO, and immediately accepted. And it really, since then, it's been hiring. We stayed very small for a long period of time to make sure we built the foundation of the company, and then we didn't have to battle the humans piece for a long time. But once the establishment of the foundation of the company and knowing how we were working, then we started to add people. And I say it's a cult-like environment, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It is. You can ask anybody coming in, they know right away if they're going to fit. The hiring process is very, I don't want to say difficult, but it is rigorous for us. Bring in hiring. It's normally only by reference that we hire. Obviously, that's not a scalable way to grow the company, but today that's worked. That we only hire by reference, somebody that knows them and knows if they'll fit in the culture. And we've only made a couple of missteps there, where somebody that's been brought in doesn't fit. And then it's obvious, that we need to part ways, but it is the culture of the organization that has kept the commitment, the service-based commitment to the principles that we've outlined.
Yeah. So this is more than, this is a lot, Therasa, what you're talking about, right? You're talking about being mission driven and putting people first, right? That have that and share that mindset, and building slowly. But you're really, what you've done is also really dominate the long game, which is, again, really hard to do in the current venture fueled, wild health tech economy, right? That in itself, I think, is a pretty massive accomplishment, and likely a topic for a whole nother episode, right? But yeah, you've really put a lot of interesting things together to build Know2 the way that it's been built.
Well, yeah, and I think you're 100% right. It absolutely has been the long game for us. And there's days when we didn't know if tomorrow was coming. And quite frankly, early on, I think that's true of every startup. We didn't know if tomorrow was coming, but the question our CEO always asked in such a great way was, what else? What else are we going to do? Right? It's, you keep going. And we did. And it was, you just keep, through perseverance and tenacity, you keep pushing through it. And again, surrounding yourself with the right people that don't see the other option as an option is the key. And we also were, fortunate enough to have the right board that was willing to persevere, but we had to make tough decisions along the way too, to keep the organization sustainable, where we weren't growing out of proportion. So it was very tough decisions along the way to make sure that we were prepared for the long game, because we knew it was a long game going in. When everybody else was going, the dollars were going everywhere else. And, interoperability was not something you could spell in post-acute, let alone know what it is. We were there. We were going to push forward. So
yeah, it's very impressive. And I assume by putting your mission first and always keeping that in mind is how you made those decisions.
Oh yeah, it's the service piece of it. We knew the underserved market needed this, and we wanted to be that engine for them. And it woke us up every day. Every day, I still wake up with literally the same passion I had on day one, same excitement. And it's what can I do today to make sure we're serving the audiences we have commitments to.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about something else that you mentioned. So you mentioned that you were the CEO, you're a co-founder, right? Very invested. You said 12 years this business has been going, and you've been at it. I assume 12 to 18-hour days every day, right?
Every day.
And I get that. When you made that decision to step down from CEO and bring in an outside person, that is so hard, right? You see so many companies go through that. You see so many individuals go through that. Can you talk about making that decision? And you make it sound so light, right? Oh, I knew this person, he was great. But I'm sure there was a lot of emotion there. And I don't see that transition go super well in a lot of orgs. So I'd love for you to just talk about that. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was very difficult for me to make the decision. And let me be clear on that. It wasn't because I was afraid to, lose the title, or, that if I wasn't seen as the CEO, I'd lose this power trip that I was on. It was actually the opposite of that, because I prefer not to be on the, the bright light or the spotlight. That's just personality of mine. The harder part was finding somebody that would be committed to the purpose and the long game. And you don't find that necessarily, going out to just hire for a CEO that's going to be not a results driven, meaning financial results immediately, because they weren't there for a long time. Financial results, somebody that's not driven to the bottom line, that's what they do, right? That's largely what they do. And so then I looked at that and said, this is going to have to be somebody I know. This is going to have to be somebody that I've judged their character based on how they've engaged in other situations, and they had no idea that they were in a long-standing interview, right? So and this person it was obvious to me. I had sat down and I thought through it, because I had approached the board and I said, hey, this isn't me. I want to lead the vision for this company. I want to sit with our engineers every day. I want to drive through the details that probably nobody else finds to be fun here sitting in this room, but I do. And that's my passion. I had to be comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable. That's what I enjoy. But I went to them and said, I have this person, and this is a person that's negotiated with us on the other side of the table. And I saw how fair he negotiated when he was leading a large international organization that had used our technology, and how he treated a small firm, right? And that told me everything I needed to know. And two, his passion for our business, even when he wasn't in it. And so yes, it was a very difficult decision. Again, not because of the title, that had very little to do, is somebody that was committed to the long game, somebody that was committed and also there's an interesting part of my personality is I'm not a great communicator. People always say she's in the cone of silence internally. And like, leave her alone. She's doing something weird in the corner over there. She's in her cone of silence thinking about something. And that's how I get through problems. I have, whiteboards that I keep by me, by my shower and by my bed. And it's just things that I think about, but I'm in my head all the time. And I sometimes have this unreasonable expectation that people should just be mind readers and understand what I'm saying. And getting what's in my head to a narrative is hard for me. It's always been hard for me. And I had to find somebody that was good at that. So that could understand, speak Therasa. I always say they could speak Therasa, but communicate it to the board, communicate it in business terms to our partners, and put it to work in a business setting. And he also did that. So again, he was a long-standing interview. He didn't know he was in, and it's worked out very well. So it was a huge move for the organization, and has proven to be one of the best moves we've made.
Awesome. I mean, that's phenomenal to hear. And I love hearing you talk about how you really understood your strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's a lot of emerging and rising women leaders, I think, don't always know that they can do that they can admit, I'm not as good at this thing, so I need to do this, or blah, blah, blah. Right. And they put themselves in situations and I get why sometimes you have to do that, but I'd love for you to talk about how you learned that about yourself, because I think it is notable.
Probably hitting the wall hard at times.
That's how I find about most of my shortcomings is I end up with like a bloody nose or something. So I get that.
And there's always this. I always feel like I'm in an imposter syndrome. Anyways, is that what they call it?
I think that's I'm permanently, and it's my life now. So it's just roll with it.
So to say that I've worked through that, I think would be not true. If I say that. I have grown much more comfortable. One, I just think some of it's experience and age. But two, it's seeing the outcome of, if I apply my energy towards what I know I'm good at and the outcome of that, versus applying it towards worry, anxiety, frustration on things I'm trying to get better at. And it's just the application of the energy and looking at the outcome. And you see far less outcome, at least my experience has been, with applying energy towards, not saying that you shouldn't improve yourself. That's certainly not what I'm saying. But the outcome, that it doesn't produce outcome, it produces a lot of heartache, and just embrace it. And by the way, it also, I think it dignifies other people, meaning everybody's bringing strengths to the table by recognizing your own and your own weaknesses, and then recognizing it dignifies them, instead of trying to, just play that front game where you can be all things to all people. It's just not possible with anybody. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything people don't know. It's just putting it into action and looking at outcomes. It's very relieving. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Very relieving thing. So.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. I appreciate the insight. I think it's what I want you to really dig into here is kind of just our last few minutes on our one big thing, 20 minutes, is it's so difficult in a startup environment. And I've lived this, right? And most of my clients live this, where you have to play that long game. And it is notable that you guys did play the long game, and No2 is a very, very reputable company in our space now, right? It's very well known. You guys are everywhere. Especially as interoperability is now, and HIE is a lowercase instead of an uppercase. So, right. So what could you share with others who are in these spaces? And again, it's so easy to go to a board meeting and hear that the expectations aren't being met, right? Financially, things aren't being met. And it's really easy to lose that vision and mission. So what tips, what advice can you leave us with to help others kind of plow through and make it like y'all have?
I don't know if I have any magic tips other than just belief. If you don't have
believe, I love it. That's going to be our headline.
If you don't believe in what you're doing right from the start, and when I say believe, it is like a burning passion inside of you that you have to let out. And if you don't approach a business with that, especially as a startup, you likely won't make it. Because you're gonna hit it. What do they say? 90% of companies go out of business, startups do, and I think it's like 93% in healthcare. I knew that going in, and I just said, okay, I want to solve this problem. So belief, I think, is strong, but it's not. It is. I can't emphasize how strong it has to be when you start out, and you can't be weak of character. Meaning, and not saying that I'm this character-filled person. Is like you've got to be able to take the knocks, man. And be comfortable with yourself. And there's going to be bad days. Preparing for it, like knowing, today you're looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I have no idea why I made this decision, but you do it and you keep going. It's just tenacity, and you keep going, but it's belief. At the end of the day, it's belief, and knowing what you're doing is the right thing, and it's not for the bottom line. The dollars will follow.